Hey, welcome back to Buck Junkies, where we talk about everything that has to do with deer hunting. Today we got Rob Hoff sitting in our guest seat. We're unofficially sponsored by Fisker's Axes and Hatchets. Hang on a few minutes and we'll let you know why.
I know my arm's tired from swinging it, but other than that, got Jamie, Mark, Mikey, and Rob in the house. Malcolm is out of town. I think he's in Jamaica about now, enjoying a little vacation.
Yeah, hard life.
Yeah, kind of wish I was down there with him. But Rob, we brought you on today. That was one of the things that, I think you and Jamie met a couple years back, and I met through doing a skull mount. But I guess tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do for a living, and kind of what you're involved in.
All right. I work at Arkabutla Lake with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Been there for about 16 years now. And I actually met Jamie doing the physically challenged deer hunt that we host every year. We get about 66 physically challenged hunters out into the woods, and it's different degrees of disabilities, everything from quadriplegics, paraplegics, and amputees, things like that. And Jamie was actually volunteering out there when we met, so that's how I met him, and eventually met all you guys through Jamie. So
Rob's got his hand full at them hunts, I can tell you.
I bet. So as far as the hunting goes, like how does that day usually start off? Like what do y'all actually do to? I know it's more to it than just the day of, but what all goes into that, I guess?
Oh, there's so much more that goes into it than I ever realized. I've been working the event now for about 14 years, but I've been in charge of it for 2, and there's a whole lot more when you're in charge of it. There's a whole lot more that goes into it than meets the eye. You don't just show up and take these guys out in the woods. We've got a ton of volunteers that help us out. They cook the meals for the hunters. Volunteers take these guys out into the woods to the stands that we have. We have volunteers that help build stands, specially designed for guys in wheelchairs and things like that throughout the summer. And we place them, and we've got to keep them maintained, things like that. So it's always something going on.
The key factor, everybody eats good that week. There is really, really good food.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you're not going to go hungry. If you do, it's your own fault.
So what determines like where y'all put those stands at? Is that just like, I know it's mainly an access thing with them, but do y'all do pre-scouting and stuff like that before y'all set those up?
Yeah, so that's a good question. We do. What we try to do, and historically, they're in the same general area because the deer generally travel the same routes every year. And so we try to put them close to, trails and food sources, things like that, where the deer tend to be. And access is a lot of it too. And depending on the hunters' disabilities and their capabilities, what it determines where we put them. Some of the guys are in those big, heavy power chairs that they can't get out of, and so we have to put them a little bit closer to the road. Some of the guys are more mobile. We can put them on 4-wheelers or side-by-sides and take them a little bit deeper into the woods. So,
how many acres is it down there total y'all hunt?
It's a little over 1,000 acres.
Really?
Yeah. And so that actually brings up a good point. The reason we started this hunt, it's been going on for 31 years now. This December will be the 32nd year, but they actually started the hunt as a management tool because the 1,000 acres that they hunt, that these physically challenged hunters hunt, nobody else gets to hunt. It's a red zone at the lake. In other words, nobody can hunt it. And the deer population was just out of control. And I mean, people were hitting deer almost every night, driving their vehicles through there, things like that. The deer were getting blue tongue and other diseases just because they were so overpopulated. So this hunt it's a win-win for everybody because these guys get to hunt an area where the deer aren't as pressured, so they have a little bit more opportunity. and it keeps the deer population in check. So
It's probably one of the biggest physically challenged hunt in the state of Mississippi too, probably, wouldn't you think?
Oh, it absolutely is. And matter of fact, it used to be, and as far as I'm aware, I think it's still the largest it's 100% free. Those hunters, all they have to do is show up and everything's catered to them. And I think it's the largest one in the country that's 100% free. So
That's awesome. That's what it's about right there. Like, we joke about, hunting and having a good time, and that right there that's on another level. That's impressive. What I remember Jamie telling me something about who mans the fire down there? Somebody has to keep a fire going for so many days.
The fire never goes out.
Yeah. So that's the tradition. We've always had a fire pit, and the rule is you start it the day before the hunt. And somebody's got to keep it going.
Rain or shine.
Rain or shine. We've kept it going through monsoons and ice storms and everything else. So
that's cool there. So I guess, that's, to me, that would be one of my top picks as far as if I was in your position, had that job, that would be, one of the memorable moments, one of the things you're proud of. But I mean, what all entails to your job outside of that?
Well, I am the land use program manager at Arkabutla Lake, so I pretty much oversee all of the land use activities, everything that goes on from painting the boundary lines to the agricultural leases to the concession leases. Like we have, Cold Water Trade Days is actually on core property, but, we lease it out to the city of Coldwater, and I'm kind of in charge of managing like those type leases, the farmland that's on us. We lease that out to local farmers, things like that. So planting food plots, prescribed burns around the lake, things like that. So it's always something, always something. Yeah,
man, if we had some of that yellow paint, we could own a bunch of property.
Yeah.
So with that, what would be your favorite? What as part as that? What would be your favorite thing when somebody says, "Hey, this is our task for this week," or "You got to do that this week"?
Well, I mean, no doubt the physically challenged hunt is my favorite part. Like y'all alluded to a little bit earlier. I mean, just the gratitude and on those guys' faces, when they, even if they don't even see a deer, because I mean, a lot of the times it's their only chance to get out in the woods and hunt. So just being able to help them get out and do the things that they love is really, really great. But I mean, also just it's a dream job. I mean, my office is literally 40,000 acres, and I get to be outside a ton. And that's what I love doing. I mean, sometimes I mumble and grumble when it's, 12 degrees and, single digit wind chills, or 100 degrees in the summertime. But I mean, it definitely beats the alternative of being stuck in a cubicle. So.
See, I mean, until I met y'all and Kevin, I was thinking like Park Ranger, but man, it's a lot to y'all's job. It's more than just patrolling a couple of acres. It's definitely a lot.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when people think of park rangers, they think of, Ranger Smith and
Yogi Bear.
Yeah. Well, just campgrounds, patrol. And we patrol campgrounds and we patrol the day use areas and we do different things like that. But we've actually, we've got a lot of rangers there. There's, let's see, there's 12 different rangers there. So, I mean, we do everything. We're essentially land managers over 40,000 acres. So, I mean, you come into work with something on your mind that you want to get done that day, but it hardly ever happens because something else is going to come up undoubtedly, So.
Have y'all ever caught anybody hunting in there that wasn't supposed to be in there?
Oh, yeah.
Mikey's like, wasn't me. We probably know some of them.
I'm pretty sure we know some of them. We may have snuck up that river with some beavers and 22s at one point or another, but we ain't gonna talk about that.
that was a while back.
But no, that's one thing. Like, I guess you never really think about it as far as acres as the actual Corps owns. I mean, I know would you say over about 40,000 here, but statewide, do you know what that number is?
Well, Arkabutla is actually one of the smaller projects. But you know, the big four lakes in North Mississippi, you've got Arkabutla, Sardis, Enid, and Grenada, and those are all Corps owned. I think Arkabutla and Enid are somewhere around 40,000 acres, and Sardis is around 90,000 acres, and I think Grenada's somewhere around 80 something. So they're all really, you know, Arkabutla and Enid are the smaller two, but there's still a lot of land if you think about it.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's like I say, I mean, it's crazy the amount of just background knowledge you got to have to do what y'all do. I mean, it's not getting in a truck and punching in and riding around. But.
So I guess with that, what schooling? Since you were in high school, did you say, "Hey, this is what I want to be," or how did it lead to that? I guess.
Well, so my dad was actually he worked for the state. He was the manager of the state parks down around Enid Lake, and that's where I was born and raised. And he was manager of Kaiser State Park down there. And, you know, I just always looked up to him. I thought it was so cool that he would come in, you know, in his uniform every night. And, you know, I'd, of course, get to do ride-alongs with him and things like that. And just seeing him interact with the public and all that. I kind of always wanted to be a park ranger. And so when I was in high school, I started volunteering with the Corps of Engineers. You know, I would help them clean out wood duck boxes and bluebird nesting boxes and things like that, just trying to get my name associated with the Corps to let them, you know who I was. And so I actually got hired on when I was in college, and after my first semester in college. And so they actually paid for part of my tuition to go to school, and then I had a job waiting on me when I graduated. So it was really cool. So I started when I was 18. That's how I've got 16 years in with the Corps so far.
Is it your brother that's in it also?
Yeah. So
we met him at the veterans.
That was the one in Enid.
Yeah. So my brother is he works down at Enid. Yeah, he's also a park ranger down there.
So I mean, what the biggest thing I want to know about, and this is my most interesting thing with you, is your bug collection. So it kind of goes hand in hand with being a park.
Not buck, but bug.
No, bug, B-U-G. I know Jamie met you through that, started doing some skull mounts, and that's, you know, we killed a couple of deer this year, and that's how I met you, was actually carrying you a deer to get a skull mount done. And, you know, I've always heard about people using beetles, never seen them firsthand. They do not look like I thought they would.
Well,
but
what do you think, Mikey? That's you got to have a pretty keen sense of smell.
Man, I walked in his shop and I was like, "Whoa!"
He said, "Rob's a tough guy."
No, he don't have a sniffer.
Yeah,
it's got a very distinct smell.
Well, the bad part is I'm so used to it I don't even smell it anymore. So that's is
pretty
bad.
loud. It's pretty loud.
That's bad.
So, real quick before you go into details on that, when we come down there a couple of weeks ago to pick my deer up, drop Malcolm's deer off, we turned on Arkabutla Road, and I said, "Hey, you gonna go see the Beetles?" And he looked at me and said, "Is that what you said stunk?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Nope."
No, Malcolm.
He almost gags when we talk about it. Like, so that was a no-go. When he got out of the truck, you could tell he was kind of real distant what room he went in. Like, he wasn't sure about coming in your garage. He's like, "They in there?" But, so I guess tell us about, for everybody that didn't know, he uses, I don't know what.
Yeah, so
spill the beans. You got it.
Yeah, so they're Dermestid beetles, and if anybody's seen The Mummy, you know, with Brendan Fraser, the bugs that crawl up under the skin, that's kind of what they were based off of, is the Dermestid beetles, but they're not quite like that.
Real small, right?
Yeah, they're about the size of lightning bugs when they're full grown. They're solid black, about the size of lightning bugs. But
I've always thought
I was thinking
like
beetle.
a grub worm, yeah. You know, big.
Yeah, so I got into it just. I used to boil my own skulls, and
That's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, and you want to talk about smells.
Yeah, that's not good neither.
And I said, man, there's got to be a better way. Well, of course, I've always heard about beetles, and I wanted to try it. And so I ordered some and, got them started. And I think I started out with 1,000, and it took the first deer I got took a really long time to clean it with 1,000 beetles. Right now I'm running about 30,000. So
See, in my mind, 1,000 beetles is like infestation.
yeah.
It's like taking over.
Yeah, but like you said, I mean, they're not that big, and actually the beetles themselves aren't what eat the majority of the meat. It's the larvae. Yeah. That's the ones that eat the majority of the meat, but yeah, it's just so much better than boiling them. Those beetles, they'll get in all those little cavities and crevices and things like that, and it leaves them just perfect,
like a natural looking skull.
Yeah, right. Because I mean, if you're boiling them, when you boil them, first off, you boil all that grease and fat down into the skull, into the bone, and you'll never be able to get it out.
Right.
Well, so those beetles, they just eat the flesh off of it, and then I'm able to degrease it, and pull all that grease out, and then I'll whiten them. And so when they are done, they'll stay white. They won't turn yellow over time and stuff like that. So
y'all can't see this, but old Tyler at the end, that's behind the scenes, he is real intrigued right now. You may have gagged once. But no, like, that was the first time I ever been around it. First time I seen it. Me and Emily went down there, dropped the deer off, and she don't have the strongest of stomachs.
No, she told me about it. She said, good Lord, it was death. It was bad.
And like, I got out of the truck, and you kind of, the wind was just right. So you got a little woof of something, but it wasn't bad. And walked in the front room, and I guess the front room, is that where you do a lot of your bleaching and like degreasing, I guess?
Yeah, so that's where I do the degreasing and the whitening and stuff like that. Yeah.
So I mean, it smelled, but it wasn't terrible. By golly, you went to that back room. It was in there. It was no doubt.
Did you go to the back room, Mikey?
I went to the back room. He
You
opened
didn't
the door.
stay neither, did you?
I got one whiff of it, and I was done. I was trying not to be rude. I was like, all right, I don't need to see him.
So as far as the process, I know you said you started off with 1,000. What all goes in to like from start to finish of where you're at now? What went into that process to, I guess you got 3 teams. You got your A team, B team, and C team.
That's right. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, where it started from there. Like, what'd you have to do to house them? How do you keep them year round? And how you come up with your teams? How'd you distinguish your teams?
So
I like the team name.
yeah. Well, I got 3 different tubs, which is, and all it is those big Sterlite tubs, and the bigger the tub, the more beetles you can have in it, because they reach like carrying capacity, and then that's all that you can house. So the bigger the container, the more beetles you can have. But so I started out with like 1 tub, did my first deer season with 1 tub, and it got pretty funky in there at the end of the season, as you can imagine. Well, you're supposed to change the bedding out, and I had no idea how to do that, so I'm digging through it with my hands, trying to sift beetles and stuff out through all the other mess, and it was pretty bad.
There's your second job, Mikey.
So I as I was doing that, I was putting them in a different tub, and I was, finally I just gave up on it, and I found a better way since then. You just lure them out with food, and they do it all on their own, and you don't have to dig through all that stuff. But I didn't know that the first year, so I ended up with 2 tubs. So the next year, I ran 2 tubs of beetles, and for whatever reason, 1 tub just really excelled, and then the other one did not. And so I called that my A team, Well, then the last few years I've run 3 different tubs, so I can do 3 different deer heads at a time. And for whatever reason, one tub always does better than the others. And so I got my A team, my B team, and my C team now.
So with that, time-wise, from the moment you drop them in, how long do you usually leave them in there with the beetles eating on them?
It depends. Depends on the weather a lot. Because I've got them in there in a heated room, and it's got a thermostat on it. So if it's constantly running heat, that'll dry it out pretty quick. Dry that meat out pretty quick. But generally, they can clean a deer head up from the moment I drop it in there in about 2 days, and it'll be spotless. Yeah.
So you're talking everything.
C-team's 4 days.
Yeah. Everything but the hide, correct? So you have to pull the hide and hair off, right?
Yeah. So if you bring me the deer head, I'll take the hide off, I take the eyes out, and I get the brain out, and then I drop it in there. So.
We need a camera on Tyler.
Yeah, we need a camera on the other end of the table.
Need a trash can, Tyler?
No, I'm good.
Good.
I'm just very interested, honestly.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
it's crazy. That's awesome.
I've always heard people talk about it, and until you see it firsthand, like it's definitely amazing to know that little critter right there can do that much work. What is it you put in there? Is it styrofoam?
Yeah. So that they live about 6 months, which is pretty long for an insect. That's a pretty long life cycle, but they don't reproduce until they're about 4 months old. So you've got to nurture them until they're old enough to lay eggs and start keep the process going. And so you put styrofoam in there, and when they're larvae, they burrow in there and they pupate, and they come out as little beetles. So it's yeah, that's what the styrofoam is. And also when it gets cold or whatever, that's where they go to stay warm. So
Good deal. Well, that was one of my exciting things. That's what I was looking forward to. Like the beetles to me are it's amazing.
I'm gonna get Malcolm a set for Christmas.
Yeah. No.
Set of Beetles.
So I know you do deer skulls. What all do you do, and what's been the most interesting? And kind of tell me. I know you got some very small animals done there in certain places, and tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I as a park ranger, of course, we come across a lot of critters, and the guys at work think it's just the greatest thing ever. So we've kind of made a sport out of what skulls we can do. And my windowsill at my office is just full of different skulls. I've done everything from, beavers and raccoons and squirrels, turkeys, ducks, but we're also venturing into possums and armadillos. And if you've never seen an armadillo skull, it's pretty interesting. So
we can get you one of them. Put that on the list. So I guess, what is it? What's the smallest you done? Did you do a hummingbird?
Yeah, so we actually I found a hummingbird outside the office, and it had flown into the window and died. So I put it on a ice cream lid, just the whole hummingbird, feathers and all, just laid it in there, and came back the next day, and the beetles had cleaned it up completely. I mean, it was just laying there perfect, no bone out of place. That's how precise they are. They just ate all the meat off of it, and the skeleton was just laying there, still intact pretty much. So.
That's actually on display at Enid, isn't it? They have it. See, we got the inside scoop for your brother.
Yeah. We done some research.
Yeah. No, it would be pretty neat.
No, I definitely want to try to. I wouldn't mind seeing a duck. Now you got me wanting. We're gonna have to get us an armadillo. Definitely need a coyote or two. Definitely thin them out. So you told me earlier that you try to finish up all your skulls before turkey season.
Yeah, that's the goal.
So if you're not doing skulls, what do they eat during? Like, how do you keep them alive till the next year?
So they're pretty maintenance free. But you gotta provide heat for them during the wintertime. But like during the summer, during the off season, the majority of what they get is hot dogs, just because they're soft and they're cheap and easy to feed them, but they can go through some hot dogs, and you get some weird looks when you go to the grocery store and you got 24 packs of hot dogs, and
We just how many hot dogs you drop in there?
That's what I'm
today?
wondering now. How many do they eat?
So I usually drop a hot dog in each tub before I go to work in the morning, and then when I get home, I'll put another one in.
It's kind of like feeding your dog.
Yeah, twice a day.
Yeah.
Darn.
Them things ought to be huge, much as they're eating. Like, I'd love to know, have you ever tried to come up with, like, roughly how many pounds they eat a year? As far as, like, with the deer skull or hot dog wise, or?
No, but that's
You got to keep up with your hot dog weight.
yeah, that'd be pretty interesting. It's a lot, I can tell you that. They never seem to lose their appetite. But I guess if you're feeding about 30,000 mouths,
The uses of hot dogs. Well, Mike, you got anything on it? You're kind of quiet on the Beetles, I think.
No, I'm listening. I'm taking it
Everybody's
all
interested in
in.
the Beatles.
He probably told me all this that day when I was in the shop, but I was
Trying not to throw up.
I was trying to get out.
So now y'all also do a squirrel hunt down there at the lake also, don't you?
yeah, we do quite a bit of, and this is actually our busy time. December through February is our busy time as far as special events go. We've got the physically challenged. Well, so we have an archery hunt that we do out there. It's a special draw archery hunt. So if you get drawn, you get to hunt in a red zone down there, with archery only. Then we've got the physically challenged deer hunt, which I'm in charge of. Then we've got youth waterfowl hunt, which I also run. We take 6 youth for 3 different days out and let them hunt in an area that nobody else gets to hunt. It's a flooded agricultural field. It's actually the same fields that we do some of the physically challenged deer hunt in. We just, after the hunt's over, we've got a riser pipe down there and we just put boards in it and flood those fields. And it's, like I said, it's agricultural fields. This year it was Milo, so it was a really good year for duck hunting.
We need Milo next year.
We will be planting Milo next
Not
year.
rice.
But yeah, then after the 2 weekends of the youth waterfowl hunt, we've got 2 weekends of the youth squirrel hunt. Then after that, we've got 2 weekends of a youth raccoon hunt. So we stay pretty busy this time of year.
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know y'all done the coon hunt. I knew y'all done the squirrel. I didn't know anything about the rest of it, though.
So
Yeah.
you talking about the youth like coon hunt, like the kids bring their own dogs and
No, actually, we've got some local guys. Raccoon hunting's pretty big around Arkabutla, and so a lot of guys have their dogs, and they're itching at the chance to run them in a spot, in a red zone where nobody else gets to hunt. So they volunteer. They come out with the dogs. We've got a 22 rifle that we bring, and an adult will carry it for the kids till we get a coon treat, and then we'll let each kid have a turn at shooting a raccoon out of a tree. It's a lot of fun. It's all these events are great, and then just getting all the youth out into the hunting community is what it's all about.
Oh, I agree. Definitely.
Well, you got any good hunting stories? I know you've probably seen plenty. I know I'm always interested as far as what comes out of that, Arkabutla, like what hunts, what deers get killed, what do you see at night, stuff like that. But I'm sure with all that, you got plenty of good stories to go along with that.
what is the biggest deer you've seen in there? I mean,
Yeah, like really.
Oh, we've got some on camera. I don't know if I need to be saying this on the air, but
We'll bleep this part out. Go ahead.
no, there's some good deer in there. I've seen several deer that they brought out of the physically challenged hunt that are just monsters. This year we had a couple decent bucks killed, but nothing spectacular like we have in the past. But it generally we'll pull a 130 class deer out every year, which for guys that are in a fixed location and don't have the option to move, it's pretty impressive. But another cool part of our job as a park ranger is you get to ride around to all these public access points and check the hunters as they're going in and coming out and things like that. And yeah, I've seen some really good deer pulled off of public land the last few years. So.
When me and Mikey was like in high school, I mean, if you rode through the spillway at night, you seen some deer. I mean, it was
Not that nobody was riding through the spillway at night.
night.
But no, that was a thing. Like, even when I was a kid, that was, the spillway.
Late in the afternoon,
Yeah.
ride down
You'd
there.
ride down there and check the spillway and just look, and you were guaranteed to see 30, 40, 50. I mean, there's been times we've seen 70 and 80,
Right.
and they were just deer everywhere.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, that's one of the reasons that hunt got started was to kind of keep those numbers in check, and you still see those deer. I don't know how, but I think they know what that red paint on the trees mean, because especially once they start getting pressured during deer season, they definitely tend to start congregating below the dam and in that 1,000 acres. So
That was going to be one of my questions. Like, when the hunting pressure gets around the park, do you see a population increase?
oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
That's crazy how they know that.
Mm.
But I mean, they're not tame by any means. You can tell when hunting season starts that you'll see them out there, but they don't stick around. And if you slow down, they know the drill. They disappear real quick.
It's funny how that area out there, we got a couple around us that hear some co-ops slowing down. Them deer are gone.
Yeah.
But no, that was I really appreciate you coming on, Rob, because that was some stuff that I think we all were really interested in, and the Beetles and stuff. And like I say, we're going to talk about some other topics the rest of the day, but you got knowledge on everything we're going to cover. So,
Yes,
jump in.
Jump in and put your input.
Because we probably got questions for you when it comes to this. But I know Mikey kind of joked about Fiskars being our sponsor for this week's episode. What did we do last week?
Well, we poisoned trees last week.
And that sounds bad. Like that, when you tell somebody we poisoned a couple hundred trees.
Couple hundred trees, everybody looks at you crazy.
Well, I'm not gonna
Like,
lie.
oh
I
my
mean,
God.
the burning off, killing trees. I mean, I've always hunted. Even to me, I'm like, I don't like the idea. But after meeting Rob, Kevin, a lot of other guys down at the Park Ranger, I mean, I've learned a lot from them about, you think of forest fire, you think of California, you think it's a bad thing, but it's not. I mean, it's putting fresh vegetation down, it's getting rid of the junk.
Yes, getting that crap off the ground where you're promoting more grasses that grow in the other areas, and it's sometimes if you've been on, the heat of your fire, how many of the little sapling trees you actually get out of that. But, like what we were doing, that was poisoning those bigger trees, 3 inches in diameter up to about 6 inches in diameter, trying to get that mid-story out where the sun can hit the floor. So the next step would be, once those trees die, is to burn them off.
And I mean, they were all junk trees. I mean, 90% of what we killed is all sweet gum.
Sweet gums and just a bunch of trees that they're not utilized by the deer at all.
And you don't realize, like when we first started that morning, I really didn't know. I've never done this. I mean, I've never, what do you call it, a chopping squirt, hack and squirt?
Hack and squirt.
I've never done that. And I mean, I've seen it on TV and stuff, but really didn't know what we were getting into.
We got to come up with a different name than that. Chopping spray sounds a lot better.
Hack and squirt. But, I mean, until you got in there and really seen what vegetation was on the ground and kind of looked at it from a different perspective, I mean, you understood what you were doing. You understood what you were trying to grow, what you were trying to get rid of. And like you were saying, talking about California fires, they don't believe in any of that. And that helps us in the end. If we can keep that bottom vegetation from drying out, we don't have a chance of having a wildfire as bad. Yeah. It's what fires we have, we're going to control. It's going to be for a positive outcome. And I don't know, it was neat to get in there and look at it from a different way. And I ain't gonna lie, my old right arm, she was a little sore this morning. We done a lot of chopping.
Man, mine's still sore. we probably didn't cover, about 10 acres?
Oh, no, we probably wasn't even that. Maybe 5.
Maybe 5. But, I mean, we probably killed at least 300 or 400 trees.
Yeah, definitely.
It was so dense in those woods with all those smaller trees. I mean, you couldn't even hardly walk through there without brushing them. So,
and you could see, I mean, we seen it exactly what we're going for. We got out of the side by side and started on the edge, and it was thick. I mean, there was hundreds of saplings in there. And then once you got in the middle, we found that one opening. That opening had the briars, it had the sage grass, it had vegetation. that nowhere else in that woods did, and that's what you want, you know. I mean, Rob, do y'all do stuff like what's y'all's program as far as that?
Yeah. So if you're managing for deer, you want to burn on a 3-year rotation. We do the hack and squirt as well.
So that's a proper name.
Yeah, it is. It's hack and squirt. But yeah, that's y'all are doing exactly right. I mean, from what it sounds like, you're trying to get rid of the non-beneficial trees and promote the growth of beneficial trees for wildlife. But burning is key. You know, constant disturbance is key. If you think about it, you know, before we took over the landscape, you know, there was lightning fires all the time. There was, you know, constant change, and that's what the wildlife need. But fires are great for promoting, like you said, new vegetation, thinning the fuel load out, because if you've neglected a pine stand or really, you know, a hardwood stand or anything like that for any length of time, and then you run a fire through it the first time, it's going to be extremely hot, and it's going to burn quick.
We're going to need you on call here in a couple of weeks.
Well, it's like, you know, you're saying that, and the land we're talking about, I guess it'd be on the south side, it's pretty open, but on the north side, all the pine trees have low limbs that are just, it's just dead pine needles in them limbs, and it's going to burn hot and fast.
Yeah, absolutely. The first time you run a fire through that, it's going to burn really, really hot. But that's fine on pine trees, as long as you don't get the topmost limbs over 140 degrees Fahrenheit for over about a minute or two. Pine trees like fire, which y'all know that already. Most people do. But if you burn it 3 year, you know, on a 3-year rotation, the next go around, it's not going to be as hot. It's not going to be as intense. Most of those lower limbs are going to be gone after you burn it. This first time, it'll take those lower limbs out. They won't catch as much pine straw. There won't be as much fuel on the ground also. So, that's why, you know, continuous burning is good, and it's going to open up the forest floor, like you said, for forbs and, you know, different types of vegetation to come in for the wildlife.
So has the pines on the south side, has they been burned before? See,
none of that's ever been burned.
See, I mean, I'm like Jamie. Like
trees look totally different.
Yeah, the trees look totally different on the
Planted
side.
in different times. So the ones on the south side of the property were planted about 4 years apart from the ones on the north side of the property.
Because to me, it looks like what you're saying. Like a lot of the lower limbs are gone. It's really not that thick in there.
They're pretty straight, and, you know, I don't know, they're peaking about 40, 50 feet.
Probably.
Now, that north side, I'm like you, it's going to be
hot.
Like light and drier lint.
Yeah, we can't burn that yet. I was instructed not to touch that yet. It's going to burn up everything, so we got to let that go for another couple of years. But when y'all burn, because when I left your house the other day, as soon as I entered I guess it'd be the south end of the park, I seen on the left y'all had burnt those pine trees. How long ago did y'all burn those?
You're talking about where the purple paint is?
I was actually in the park, so as soon as I came in, it was like right there on the left, across from the camping area.
Yeah. So we burned that 2 years ago, I think. Yeah, 2 years ago.
So end of February, first part of March is like the ideal time, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, really, you can burn anytime January, February, March. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish, really. If you're burning pine stands, and you want to just knock back the other vegetation like sweet gums and things like that, you want to do that while it's dormant. You can do fall burns, you know, in August, September, October, and if you want to wipe out hardwoods, like if you want to kill them, like if you've got sweet gums, like a thicket like you're talking about, and you want to kill them, if there's enough fuel on the ground and you can get a hot enough fire to run through it, if you burn it during the growing season, you'll effectively kill them. Most of the time, if you don't want to damage the hardwoods and things like that, you January, February, March, before things start greening up.
I know a friend of mine, he's got a place at Holly Springs. I know Holly Springs, just the national park forest or whatever, they just done a burn probably about 2 weeks ago.
Right, and if you notice, they got a majority of pine down there. That's what they're managing for, is the pines, and so yeah, they generally start burning in January through, like I said, green up. Once the trees come out of dormancy, once the hardwoods come out of dormancy, they'll try to get as much burning as they can in, based on weather conditions.
So what are the penalties for fire getting away from you?
Well,
I need to know that.
I'm like, no comment.
Yeah, we'll wait till we hit stop, and then we'll talk about no.
No, I mean, it's just, property damage, that you got to be really, really careful when you're burning. And there's, the Forest Service and the Mississippi Forestry Commission, they put on prescribed burning classes that are, free of charge, and you can become a prescribed burn manager. And of course, most of the guys out at the lake are prescribed burn managers.
I learned a lot from y'all about that. I just thought I didn't know it was like a schooling or technique or whatever, but it's a lot involved in that too.
Yeah, there's a lot to it that I didn't realize either. And I used to do a lot of burning before I went to that class, and I'm very fortunate that nothing happened. But yeah, it's a really great course, and you learn a lot. But I mean, you've got to take into account wind direction, mixing height, atmospheric conditions, things like that, that I didn't really realize until I went through that class.
Yeah, because but the north side, it's more hilly and gullies, whereas the south side, it's flat, with a little, not as bad hilly, but it'll burn totally different, I would guess.
Yeah, probably so.
So y'all got any burns at the lake coming up this year?
Oh yeah, that's what we're in the process of doing right now, is putting in fire lanes and doing burns. We've done a few so far this year. We've probably only burned about 15, 20 acres, but I think we're going to try to burn tomorrow. I was looking at the weather earlier, and the conditions are looking good, so we're gonna do probably about a 40-acre block tomorrow, and then we're going to put in some more fire lanes and start burning them too as soon as we can.
So like on the pines, what you think, you come in and say you burn tomorrow, when do you start seeing your new growth coming back, like midsummer probably?
Oh no, it'll start coming back the end of March.
Okay.
Yeah. Once everything starts greening up, as soon as you can get that forest floor open and the growing season starts, you'll start to see, I mean, it doesn't take grasses and other vegetation long to fill in those voids. As soon as they get sunlight and all on them, they'll pop up.
That's what back when Mikey started talking about this burning, I looked up. I know it's not around here, but it's a type of tree that I guess it's not as acorn, but it takes heat to make it open up and regrow.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, most conifers are like that. Yeah, the redwoods out in California, the sequoias, but even pine trees. If you'll not, you said those
like the cone won't open up and regrow another tree
until
it gets a certain temperature.
Right.
Or that fire.
Yeah. Usually it takes running fire through it to get them to germinate. That's correct. Yeah.
I did not know that either.
Smart.
Where did you find that at?
He Googled it before we come in here.
I looked at, no, for real, I did watch a show about it and read about it like a couple months ago when you was talking about doing a burn.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess part of it is, I mean, heck, just so that, I mean, when y'all first talk about burning stuff, I was like, I don't know. I mean, it does. It kind of, it sounds.
Nobody knows.
Yeah, nobody knows.
Nobody
I mean,
knows.
So it sounds worse than it really is. But after I guess getting ground level with it and seeing, I mean, it's very, it has a huge positive outcome for the environment. Is there a negative side effect to it? I mean, other than as long as it don't get out of hand, burn your neighbor's barn up. I mean, but,
yeah, right. Well, I mean, if as long as you do it in a controlled way, in a controlled manner, like you said, there's no negative. As long as if you know what you want to accomplish as far as, lowering fuel loads or whatever you're trying to accomplish, and you do it correctly, then no, there's no negatives. It's all positive.
I mean, wildlife has got it genetically built in to them to know, hey, we're going to move out, then settle us back down, we're coming back in. It's not like you're killing wildlife.
You're not burning their house down like
yeah.
a lot of these Disney movies portray,
Right.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, you've got, your rabbits are going to go underground and let that fire pass. And if you do it right, that fire is only going to cover the landscape for,
seconds or
minutes. Just seconds going across certain parts of the landscape. So, I mean, and it's not going to be a wildfire out of control. Of course, in Mississippi and the Southeast, you don't have those dry, windy conditions like they do out west. So, not to say that fires can't get out of hand here, but it's not.
It all go back to having that knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, how many acres do you set aside a day? Because, I mean, I'm sure there are times where you have to stay overnight and stay with it, but, I mean, how many acres can you do in a day in perfect conditions?
So typically you don't want to start burning until after about 9 or 10 o'clock, because you want to let that morning, the dew get off the ground, and it dries up typically after lunch. The air dries up. You'll get your afternoon winds typically to carry it. So let's just say you start burning at 10 o'clock. I mean, if the conditions are right, depending on the landscape, let's just say you're burning a pine stand. I mean, you could burn several hundred acres in one day.
Really?
Yeah. So
I was thinking like 10.
No, I mean, it goes quick. You'll probably have to help it along. And by that, I mean, take your drip torch or whatever you're using to start that fire and run lines. I should say it's key to do a backfire on whatever direction the wind is blowing. You want to light your fire on that end first and let it back burn to your fire lane to stop it, and that creates a buffer zone.
A bigger buffer zone than just the fire lane.
Right, correct. And it's burning into the wind, so it'll be a slower burn. But that's how you do a controlled burn, is you have a big buffer zone, because embers and things like that can jump a fire lane. But if you have a 50, 60 yard back burn, then you can go to the windward side and run a line through that, and the wind will carry it pretty quick through there. And as long as you've got your, back burn side, well established, it should work like
pretty much control.
Yeah, exactly.
Putting fire out with fire.
Yeah, exactly.
We might have to make a trip tomorrow.
That's kind of what I was sitting there thinking. We might have to make a trip. Tuesdays are pretty slow. No.
How many extra green shirts y'all got?
So, I mean, we definitely know we're going in the right direction. We got a long ways to go down there. I mean, this is really kind of going to be the first full year of really putting some of these ideas into play. We was down there last week. Like I say, we were doing a hack and squirt and kind of really looking at a lot of the trees we had and the lower vegetation that we either needed to keep or get rid of. And while we were doing that, something gets left out a lot is water drainage. I mean, we learned that quick, a little bit of rain and you can lose acres of land, especially if you got a large creek or river running through your place. And Jamie, that's your cup of tea. Like,
it hadn't rained since I've done it, so I don't know. But I mean, we definitely.
Jamie usually is our box blade guy. I sure can't run one. It'll look like a motocross track if I got out there and tried to grade something. But I guess tell him a little bit as far as.
Well, I mean, until I'd done a little bit of work at another hunting club, I never thought about having a crown in the road to get the water get off the middle of the road so it dries out faster. And then, like I said, we got a couple of roads down there to wash them a little bit. We put ditches in. Hopefully it's gonna get this better. That one food plot that we call it the mud hole stand, it
still needs some work.
Well, it's definitely a whole lot better than it was.
That's a bunch of water comes through that bottom though.
It is.
But you don't realize like what your water's doing until you get in the wintertime when you're getting a lot of rain. We don't get no snow or nothing like that hardly around here, but get a lot of rain and it keeps it wet, and then you start seeing how your water is tracking through your property and stuff like that. And now is the time, like before we get those heavy spring rains, is to go ahead and fix that now. That way you're not fighting it, or the damage gets worse when it comes springtime.
I mean, 90% of the time, you're not out there to see it. I mean, one reason we seen a mud hole this year is we were still hunting, and it come a monsoon, and we were actually coming out, and heck, it was almost over the road.
Yeah.
And, most time, I mean, I'm the same way. If it's coming to flood, I'm not finna go out there and look and see what the water's doing,
We're back at camp eating biscuits.
Yeah. But, I mean, especially on the new property with that big ditch running through there, that's something that, we're going to have to do upkeep. And, you don't realize how quick water can completely destroy your road system or your levees or anything like that.
Yeah, when you buy land, there's a lot of work that goes into it besides just hunting it and just riding around on it. I mean, you still got to maintain that property, or you wind up losing it or get worse, or whatever the case may be. It's that new property that Malcolm just acquired. The soil over there is real sandy, and got a huge ditch runs through 2 different sections of it. So
and holds water.
Yeah, and the ground stays rotten, so it don't take much for that to just go down in the ditch. So you got to keep those drainage ditches cleaned out and make sure all your culverts and things from the NRCS that's been put in around the ditch and stuff like that are cleared out, and they're functional.
See, that's like what we talked about last week. Hunting is a lot more than going out and shooting a deer. I mean, it's not just that.
And tell me, we're guilty of it. I mean, until the last few years, we just hunted.
Well, we grew up to where we hunted. You didn't have to do anything.
Yeah. I mean, either that or you didn't have permission to do it. You had the land to hunt on, and you really couldn't work it. So this is new to all of us for sure. So
the next thing, what we definitely got to work on, that's coyotes. Man, me and my dad and my nephew went down to looking for rabbits the other day.
I still don't believe this.
Man, we walked and we did not jump with one rabbit.
But we got deer cameras out there, and there was 25 on them that afternoon. I mean,
3 rabbits.
I mean, I got a whole booklet of pictures of rabbits, but they didn't see the first one.
You look at the cameras also, and there's a coyote walking by the camera with a rabbit in his mouth. I found leftovers of rabbits down there where coyotes eating them. So the coyote's definitely something we finna hit hard and heavy.
Yeah,
I mean,
we got plans to do that this spring anyways. I know I was going to go down there and set traps and spend a weekend down there, me and my brother, and probably put out a few bait up a few places for the coyotes and see if we can't clip off a few of them. But yeah, if you don't get them maintained. And
do y'all see that a lot on, down at the lake, like coyotes, like really bad? Or
yeah, I mean, obviously, if the habitat is suitable for coyotes, they're going to fill that void, and they're pretty adaptable. I mean, they can survive just about anywhere.
Yeah, coyotes are super smart.
And yeah, they're super smart, and they can adjust to changing environments. But yeah, we've got a ton of them out there at the lake, and we're working on, we've got trappers that we hire out, and also we kind of dabble in trapping a little bit, try to do our part out there. But again, you got to be careful on public land when you're setting traps.
Yeah. And that's something like, we put a lot of work into building the ultimate habitat for what we like to hunt. Well, what we like to hunt is what them coyotes like to eat, and same thing as bobcats, all that. I mean, you're growing the habitat across the board, not just for one species. And that's kind of, we joke about the good, bad, and ugly. That's part of the bad and ugly that you got to do. You got to eliminate some of them species to.
I mean, they do serve a purpose, don't get me wrong, but we got too many of them down there.
Well, I want, in that sense, I want to be the one that decides which deer we take.
Yeah, not a coyote.
Not the coyotes or the other varmints that are taking them down. Same way with the rabbits and stuff. If we want to kill rabbits, I want us to be the ones to decide which ones we're killing.
Yeah.
Not the varmints.
And then a lot of people don't think about the coons. They probably kill more turkeys, I would say, than a coyote or bobcat even thinks about killing.
Right. Yeah. Just nest predators.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
We're infested with coyotes. We're going to have to get Willie back up 100% and get him
coons and coyotes.
Coon hunting. I mean,
now we got a couple of coons that I'm pretty sure would go on a Boone or Crockett scale. Like, I mean, they're pretty good size.
30-pounders.
Y'all got any hogs at the lake yet?
We do not. There's hogs that ask,
knock on wood.
Yeah, exactly. There's hogs that Askew, which, that's a 4,000 acre block of land that we have down around Crenshaw. and it's right on the river, and we've got hogs down there on it. And once they move in, you can't hardly get rid of them. We've got drop traps, and of course we allow people to hog hunt down there, and you just can't hardly put a dent in that population. Just they reproduce so fast and so young. There's not much you can do. The drop cages are the best, but I mean, most people can't just go out and buy one of those drop cages, So the best, but that's the best way to catch them, large groups at one time. That's the only way you're really going to make a dent. But I'll tell you this, once you catch hogs in one location, you're going to have to move that trap because they don't fall for it again.
People don't realize how smart a hog actually is.
Yeah, they're extremely intelligent.
You would think it, but
No.
we duck hunt just north of Askew, and a guy that we lease the holes and stuff from, it's everyday deal. They just about gonna shoot at one several times a week down there, and I didn't realize. I mean, you always hear about it tears up the farmland, and when we were putting duck blinds in, he had just cut beans, and it looked like you run a tiller through 100 acres, and it was just from holes.
They'll root land up so quick.
Yeah, and we've got levees down there at Askew to hold the water impoundments for the ducks, and those hogs will just rip right through them, and so we're constantly repairing levees down there because they'll completely destroy it, just rooting.
It's a lot to it.
Yep. What'll a cow do to a food plot, James?
Yeah. What's the legality of stray cows? That's what we need to know.
So we planted a bunch of food plots and spent a lot of time manicuring these things and keeping them sprayed.
They were looking good.
Man, they were thick, they were lush, and the daggum cows from the neighbor got through the fence and got in. Well, they got in two of them, two of them. Got in that clover, and
It's
Jamie
not good on their stomach.
I guarantee you they had a tore up stomach.
Yeah,
Them
lots of
cows,
clover don't sit well.
What'd you call it? What'd they have?
bloat.
No,
Scarmies or something like. What'd you call
Scours.
Scours. All of them had no green scours.
Yeah, it's bad. And the bad thing is, we pretty much got all the cows off the property, but one. And to this day, I think it had code to the gate. I don't.
Yeah, that was Gertrude. We left her up there so we can put
Yeah,
out
it would just
feeders.
we'd show up at the house one day.
Yeah, I'm talking about show up like in the flower beds at the house. Like,
I pulled up one day. They had just laid the sod on the camp, and she had a big old piece of that square in her mouth, that Bermuda sod, just chewing on it, looking at me. I was like, golly, this thing's up here eating sod.
I don't know if she's still down there or not. I hadn't seen her in a while.
Me and Malcolm ran her back up the road one day. We pushed her up.
it might still be in the road. Might never made it back.
She went in somebody's pasture. I don't know if it was hers or not. She didn't come back.
But no, there's a lot of unforeseen negative things out there. We've covered some of them. One big thing that's probably a sore subject for certain people, but is a stray dog. Like, we had that like I've never seen before this year.
Well, they don't mean no harm, but they don't know that.
Well,
they're probably not killing it.
It ain't the dog's fault; it's the owner's fault.
That's just like
they're running them off. The more pressure they get on them, they're gonna leave the property. They keep
like Friday. I was on the tractor and had two dogs come by me that they didn't pay me any mind.
No, I mean it ain't the dog's fault. You hate to be aggressive toward a dog, but I mean you got to keep them on your property one way or another.
Yeah, if they got collars on them, try to catch them and call the owner. But if they don't have collars on them, I don't know. They kind of go under coyote. Same category as a coyote, I think.
But no, I think we got a very, very busy spring coming up. I know you went and picked up trees. How many trees we get?
Oh, Lord.
This is really going to confuse folks. We killed 500 and we just went and bought some more.
300.
Bought 200 trees, 200 sawtooth oaks, and about 100 persimmon trees.
But again, trees that are beneficial to the habitat.
Kill the ones that ain't beneficial to what we're trying to do, which is the deer, and take those out, and we replace trees or grown up pastures and stuff that we don't want to maintain with the trees that we do want to.
Well, we're going to try to plant them.
We're gonna have to plant them in the next week or so. They won't. Well, you can keep them in the water and stuff like that for a while, but I don't trust that. I'd rather get them in the ground as quick as possible.
Hopefully.
Y'all got any special techniques on planting that we don't know about other than a posto digger?
No, we use dibble bars for the bare roots. In fact, this last week we just planted a little over 200 trees. So.
Oh, y'all got experience. What y'all doing next week?
No, I'm ready. Hopefully we're done with the cold weather, and maybe these trees will survive. I know you said some of the ones we planted last year may have not made it.
Yeah, I walked around the property. It was last Friday after we got through. I didn't have time to do nothing else, and so I rode around, looked to see how many of the trees survived. Which, of course, they're grown up in grass right now, but we did lose quite a bit of them.
So y'all planted a couple hundred last year. Like the very next weekend, we got all that snow and ice. It just didn't work out right.
So yeah, I had to go out there and mark the ones that are still alive, and it may just be better to start over.
I mean,
There
we
ain't
gotta
enough
put more.
to save. Yeah.
I definitely want to get some on them, like more groomed areas, like up around the pond stand and stuff like that, where you can see them, keep up with them.
I want to keep them kind of in the interior of the property. That way we're drawing the deer out,
Off the edge.
off the edge of the property, because most of the things we're doing are to benefit us, not the neighbors. But, sometimes they get kind of close to the fence, and you got to deal with that. But anyways.
Well, Rob, now it's your turn. You got anything you want to promote, man? Anything speak for the Corps coming up? Programs, kids hunts, anything like that?
Well, like I said, we got the youth raccoon hunt. We had it this last weekend, and we got it this weekend. And after that, it's gonna be crappie season. So we're getting geared up for that. So it's gonna be. Of course, right now I will say this. Everybody has been telling me that they've been coming out to the lake for 30 years and they've never seen it this low, but I can promise you it gets this low every year. We're doing the winter drawdown right now. And we're, a flood control reservoir. We're going to catch these spring rains and keep them from flooding the farmers downstream. So that's why the lake is so low.
You get a phone call every day. Why is the water low?
Yeah, there's not a leak.
Yeah.
So
Y'all open a valve tomorrow.
yeah.
Well, good deal, Rob. Well, we sure appreciate you coming by, man. I learned a lot, and we probably going to pick your brain a few more times. I know Malcolm's going to be jealous he missed out on this one because this was a good one, but
Yeah, actually, I'm going to meet with Kevin Friday, and he's going to help us out, give us some ideas upon the ways to burn and what the land looks like. So,
yeah, it's fitting to be busy for all of us. But I guess that's it, boys. That's all we got for today.
Yep.
Anybody got anything else? Last call?
No.
Well, we appreciate y'all checking it out, and we'll see y'all next time on the Buck Junkies podcast. We're gone.